Hi there. I have an audio clip that I think you should listen to because it's the economist view of what went wrong with the banking crisis. And it uses a term that I didn't know before, but that completely describes the insanity of the whole thing. And this is, the economist calls this the demand gap. He tells it the story like this. His narrative is that basically manufacturing capacity outstripped the consumption capacity of the US citizen. His wages of the US average wages were too low, so the US citizen could not afford everything that was produced, and so the US consumer was going into debt, was extended loans by the banking system to consume these goods that were produced, and in the end that went wrong, of course, because the consumer didn't have the carrying capacity for that whole thing. The solution this man offers is to increase the wages of people so they can afford all the products that are being manufactured. This is the typical economical argument. That's the typical argument that is blind for the reason why all this is happening. That is because of the unlimited supply of energy. And due to the unlimited supply of energy, which is for the US especially the case because they print a dollar, they have the petrodollar. You also have an unlimited supply of raw materials that you can ship from anywhere around the world because you always have the dollars to buy for the oil to ship it, because you print those dollars. So, but the insanity is I think completely obvious and can be summed up in a very simple concept, and that is, if people can't afford anything or something, they shouldn't buy it. And if people don't ask for something, then you shouldn't produce it. Production should be demand-driven. But of course, that has been a characteristic of economics for the last 100 years, I guess. That production was not demand-driven, and there's a very good reason for that. And that has to do with the banks again. Once again, I won't make this story too long because you have to. I think you should listen to this clip as well. And just think about how backward that whole reasoning is, and how blind this guy is for the real limiting factor that wasn't there because we had limitless oil in the US. But production should not be demand driven, should not be supply driven, but it should be demand or need driven. The reason why it is driven by the production side is that it is very easy to justify loans based on projected income from production. So the banks, once again, are the culprit in this whole game, because if you go to an average citizen and look at me, I can do a little bit of software electronics. How much money am I going to make? What type of loan will you extend to me? Well, it's going to be limited, because the projected income that I will generate is not the same as that of Coca-Cola or some other big corporation. While if I have a company and I tell the bank that I'm going to extend my factory and I'm going to make 100,000 shoes next year and sell them for $1 a piece or something like that, I have a whole story around it, then this just is perfect for the banks, because they need that. They want you to competitively expand your business. That's why they drive the whole competition myth in the free market. That's the whole reason why they do that. To have people take risks, as they call it, which means that they get a business case. They say, okay, well, you're gonna now take this loan out, and you're gonna increase your manufacturing capacity, and you're gonna manufacture and see how well you're doing. We're also doing it with all your competitors at the same time. So we know this is all a big hoax and a big let's say con game, and you're not going to do very well because we're going to sponsor 10 of your other competitors, but we get the fees, we get the income, we get the rent, and that's why we get rich. So it is very easy to understand why at a certain point manufacturing capacity outstripped demand, because banks always increase manufacturing capacity, because they are about creating the competition in the market, which means that they make money. And the next step they did was blow bubbles, and of course you had the dot-com bubble and the other bubbles, And a very smart bubble that they created was the housing bubble. Why is a smart bubble? Well, because it makes low-income people richer. And especially the ninja loans. Can you imagine that you're a ninja house buyer and you flip your house a few times and it increases? This is just handing out money to everybody, extending credit to everybody. You can just get a credit card, go into that, this and that and that. They created the regulation or the regulatory environment to do that, so that people could consume this overcapacity that the banks themselves also created. The limiting factor to the whole story is of course the supply of energy, and that is what is collapsing. Basically the economical collapse is hiding the energy collapse and the problem behind it. And I talked about it in this other video. But I think listen to the audio and you know the economical argument. You also know that I hope you agree with me, that there is a kind of insanity apparent in it, because it never asks the question, what do people actually need? You know, that's just what is so weird about economics. It is not about what people need. And you know, it's quite logical now that you see that people don't get what they need, and a lot of them don't get what they need, and I guess in the end nobody will get what they need, because that's just, the system has never been geared to accommodate that.
Well, you know, it shouldn't be a surprise why we need so much bailout. Over the past 30 years, productivity has been going up all over the world, but wages are constant. Remember this, productivity has been rising, wages are constant. Productivity is the main source of supply, wages are the main source of demand. So the result is supply has been rising faster than demand. So there has appeared a demand gap, and to fill that demand gap, the whole world has been creating more and more debt, especially in the United States. They have created consumer debt, the government debt, and so on. But now, because of the banking crisis and because the consumers don't have collateral anymore, they have mortgaged their homes and cars, everything, consumer debt is not rising. So to fill up that demand gap, the government debt is skyrocketing. And if the government doesn't do that, we will have a full-fledged depression. So we need some long-term reforms so that wages keep up with productivity. That's not happened in Ireland, that's not happened in Eurozone, and it's official corruption. Because of official corruption, productivity goes up but wages don't, and therefore that's what we need to do. Otherwise, we are facing a depression.